we are here to talk about red and not like just the color, not just everything red that everyone knows, but we're talking about Taylor Swift's re-released version of Red. It's called Red Taylor's version. And of course, I have two of my favorite Swifties back with me on the podcast, Jacqueline and Elena Kendrick. You guys have been on before talking about, I think, about the same topic, right? So we always seem to circle back to Taylor Swift. Why is that? Like, why do we always talk about her?
She's our favorite.
She's just, and she's my favorite topic. And we're basically veterans of the podcast now. So we had to come back to discuss Taylor's version of Red.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree. I agree. And this is all part of her process that she's been doing for a while with re-releasing albums and re-recording them to get her masters. And in the interview that I was watching earlier with her on the late night show with Seth Meyers, she was talking about how like the whole process of re-recording all these songs is going back and like digging up these songs that she had written that didn't make it onto her previous versions of the album. So what does that mean? Like, what do you guys think that means for you as like the fans of Taylor that have been with her since the beginning, for her to like finally be putting out these songs that she loves so much that she had to leave behind?
I think it's really exciting. I think she said in an interview that like a lot of her vault, she calls them like her vault songs, like they all have very different sounds and they kind of all sound like an array of like different genres. And so I think it's cool to see like how she was kind of like experimenting back then and now she's kind of like found her way. And yeah, they're just really great songs. And it's cool to see like what, because like a lot of the storylines and lyrics in those songs relate to like the songs that were originally on the album. So it's cool to like make those connections and just like hear more about like what she was experiencing that time.
Yeah. I think it's also so cool because we're getting the full picture now as fans, because Red is known as like a heartbreak album, and like you can really see what Taylor was going through at that period of time in her life. And like now that we have the vault songs, it feels like that full body of work is so cohesive and we get the full picture now. For example, there's the All Too Well, which is a song that was on the original version of Red. And there's I believe the moment that I forget what it's called, Elena, The Moment I Knew, is that what it's called? That was, I think, on the original version, but on like the deluxe version. But now we just have so much more insight to the context of what was going on in Taylor's life at that point in time. And it just feels so whole, because I think sometimes, you have to cut so many songs for an album, and, artists write so many songs for what they're going through that period of time, and it sometimes feels a little bit incomplete. And I don't know, as a fan of Taylor, I feel like I finally got like closure to that era, because there's so much more to it that we didn't get that first time around.
Right. And I think too, when I first listened to all the songs that are from the vault, I was immediately like, these could be their own album. Like this is very much its own work in itself, just these 9 tracks.
Yeah, for sure. It's incredible how like Taylor is known for kind of like outdoing herself. Like as fans, we were excited because we knew we were going to get more songs. We knew that there was going to be a 10-minute version of All Too Well, but then she comes in and she's like, bam, here's a short film too, and here's another music video. And it's just like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. It's amazing. But like, oh my goodness, do you ever sleep?
Oh my gosh, yeah. She gives her all, and she's always like outdoing herself. You can see that too with all the numbers and all the records that she's breaking. Like she's shattering all of her own records for like streaming platforms and like debuts and all this stuff. It's just insane. Like she gives it her all. And Jacqueline, like on that point too, with we're talking about All Too Well and the short film that she put out, this was her first time directing a short film, she said. And like I said, I did watch it and I got context behind the meaning and why she chose the certain actors to play like the characters and all this stuff. What do you think like it meant for you guys as fans to have an actual short film associated with this song? Because like we said, actually we'll mention like this was the original song that she had written before she first released Red, and she had to trim it down. So now it's like we're getting the full picture, like you mentioned.
Yeah, it feels so personal as a fan to kind of get the short film with it now, because not only is it the original lyrics, but it tells the story so vividly that I've like seen in my own mind for so many years, and I've listened to the song, and it's just so nice to now have that visual element to it. And I think the amazing thing about All Too Well is that, you know, when she had put it on the original Red album, so many fans fell in love with it. It wasn't a single worthy, I guess, what her management considered a single worthy song. But the fans took a lot of ownership over it, and they were like, we love this body of work that you put out. And like, they're the ones who, or we're the ones who kind of blew it to what it was. And then this feels like Taylor kind of giving back to us in some way and acknowledging that all these years she's seen us, she's heard us. And hey, listen, I have this extended version, and now you're also going to get a short film with it. I think as a director debut, she did a wonderful job with incorporating what fans love about the story of All Too Well, between just the choices of the actors and just like the scenery that she used, and just her storytelling abilities, and how she ends up putting that twist at the end. And she's in the music video, or sorry, not music video, short film. I don't know, it just had so many really cool elements to it, and I was very satisfied, and just felt like it was such a really cool thing that she did that I've been watching multiple times. So
Yeah, I agree. It's always been my favorite song, like of hers, period. Like she has a billion different albums that all sound completely different. And it's always been my favorite song. And that's like before it even like blew up and like it became the fan favorite, like Jocelyn said. But yeah, I think like obviously she's really she participates a lot in the work that she does. So like she's directed music videos before. So I feel like that probably helped her come up with like the concept and the ideas for the short film. But I feel like just that kind of work of art itself is very different than a typical, you know, music video. Obviously it's 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
And like there's that like break in between where they have like the argument and the acting going on. So I feel like it's cool that she's kind of like at her age and at her like like her time, like she's been obviously an artist for so long that she's now like comfortable experimenting with like that kind of side of the industry. So I think it's really exciting for her, and I'm sure she's gonna do more with that and maybe a million other things that we would never guess. So I'm really excited to see.
yeah, that's true.
And
I
I
think
love
she's like,
the I would say I love the approach too with the other music video, even though she didn't direct it. Blake Lively directed the I bet you think about me music video. And even that, like, I probably would have to watch it a couple more times to really kind of break down what she was trying to portray, but I'll definitely ask you guys about this in a second. But it was another one of those really expressive like bodies of work that you could tell took a lot of thought and took a lot of representation from the album to really like show, you know what I mean?
yeah, definitely.
No, I agree. I feel like there's been, especially like within the last few months, there's been so many like great albums that have come out. Like Ed Sheeran's album came out, Adele's album came out, which like was such a great thing because she hadn't put out an album in so long. And then Taylor giving everyone this album, like obviously there's like just so much out there to listen to right now, but I always find myself going back to this album because it just feels so nostalgic. And also the benefit of having all these new songs that I'd never heard before. So when she put out that music video for that song, I was really excited. And I think Blake Lively did an amazing job and really was able to kind of like capture Taylor's vibe, I guess, and like but put her own kind of twist on it. And I feel like they kind of probably worked together in a lot of ways to come up with like the idea and the story for that. So yeah.
I really like the line too in that song where I think I wrote it down. I don't know if it's exactly the same, where she said, the love that you're looking for was the love that you had. Is that correct? Am I getting that right? You two would know.
Yeah.
That line just like really stuck with me. And like,
Dave.
I got it. Like that line just really stuck with me in terms of like the whole message with the music video too. And like her being at this wedding that she's essentially sabotaging for this person that like you assume she once had a relationship with.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a, I know. And there's like what's the other line in the song? It's like, It's harder. Turns out it's harder to leave me than it was. Wait, why am I confusing it, Elena? What's the line?
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about, but I think I know what you mean. But
Oh my god, I'm having a mind blank, Dave. This is bad.
That's okay. I'm sure the audience will forgive you.
I'm sorry, audience. Wait, I bet you think about me lyrics. I swear. It's like, oh wait, where is it? Sorry, I have to put a pause on the show.
She's doing her homework.
Yeah, she has to find it.
Doing my homework. I do, because it's gonna drive me nuts. I know, I'm trying to like. Oh, well, I also like this line. I don't have to be your shrink to know that you'll never be happy. Mic drop.
It's a very straightforward piece of music, I would say.
Yeah.
She's being very, very direct and honest in it.
Yeah. And there's so many, it's like so open to interpretation in terms of like what she was trying to get across here.
Yeah, a lot of people have like a bunch of different theories about what she's talking about. Like some people think it's obviously about Jake Gyllenhaal again. A lot of people think it could be like about Kim and Kanye, because she mentions in the song, like, even though it sounds like she's talking about like a relationship, she mentions like the $1 million couch, which like was all over like social media, that they had like $1 million couch. And obviously she had that beef with them, and like she said, like, you hate that, like, I wrote songs about you, and we know she's like written songs about Kanye before. So
Right.
I don't know what it could be, or they think it could be about, Scooter Braun and the other man that stole her music. But I feel like it couldn't have been if she wrote it all the way back then, because that hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of different ideas. Who knows?
I found my line. I'm sorry.
Okay. What is it?
And not I just like this line. I don't even have that much to say about it, but it says, but it turned out I'm harder to forget than I was to leave. I really like that one.
Oh yeah.
That's the thing I love about Taylor's music, especially with the song like I Bet You Think About Me, because it's a fun song. Like, it's upbeat. It's like the music video even made it more like vivid in my mind when I hear it, but the lyrics are still so good and like so just poignant, I guess. And I don't know, that's something I love about her music, even when there are a lot of like upbeat tracks, is that it still just hits so home.
And I feel like the thing that kind of bothers me, like on social media, when I hear people talking about the album, or like Taylor haters, all they say is like, oh, why is she singing about these relationships 10 years later? Like, she needs to get over it. Like, why does she just like only write about like ex-boyfriends and only can hold relationships for like months at a time? And it's like, people have to remember that this is what she wrote during that time. And also, like, I feel like people take her lyrics because they're so direct, and because she doesn't really care. Like, it's like her art. She doesn't care what message really like she's putting out. She just wants to be honest and truthful. And I feel like that intimidates a lot of people and makes people mad. And like, it could even be seen, like, I think people kind of can see it as her being like sassy and like hateful towards like men. And I'm like, that's not what's happening at all. If you actually listen to her lyrics and like listen to her message and know who she is as a person, like, you would have a completely different picture of her. So yeah, that's me defending Taylor.
I was gonna say, that was a good tangent that you just went on.
Well, I was just reading it like recently, I think like today or yesterday, and I saw all these comments, and I was like, what are people talking about? Like, it's obviously people who don't actually listen to her like songs, or only listen to her like popular songs on the radio, and not like her other music or stuff that she does. So
it's always the people that don't know as much about the subject that make the biggest critiques. You know what I mean? Like, it's just people make assumptions about her and her music. And like, I think I've been guilty of that too, but I agree. Like, you have to know the artist and you have to know the craft to like fairly judge what they're doing.
right. And that's like a lot of people who defend Taylor are saying, like, people get upset saying like she only writes about relationships and like ex-boyfriends and stuff. But it's like, that's kind of any artist, like any man is who's writing love songs or writing about like heartbreak or whatever, and no one says anything to them about it. So it kind of proves her point that like you know, like a lot of times there's that double standard. So whatever.
Another song too that I really want to mention, because this was kind of a big deal because she does collab with a lot of people on these tracks from the vault too. Her song Nothing New with Phoebe Bridgers, that was a huge deal that she had Phoebe Bridgers as a feature. One, because Phoebe Bridgers is just one of those artists that's very like up and coming and she's like really getting a lot of buzz. And two, something else that my roommate pointed out was like Phoebe Bridgers had like a full ass verse on this song. Like she literally like essentially sang this song along with Taylor, which was also something that Taylor said in her interview with Seth Meyers, that she was like saying she's a fan of Phoebe. And like she literally said, and I wrote it down because I love this quote. She was like, if she sings it, I will listen to it. Like that was what she thought of Phoebe's voice and her music in general. What did you guys think of that song? Because I want to see if you're thinking the same thing that I picked up on. Well, I literally have it from Taylor, what she said the song represents, but what did you guys think of that song?
I'm glad you brought this up because this is literally, I think, my favorite Vault song. And before this album, completely unaware of who Phoebe Bridgers was. So I love that Taylor just introduced me to a new artist. But I think this song really captures that bittersweet uncertainty of your early 20s. And just feeling like, oh my goodness, where am I heading? What am I doing? Those late night anxious thoughts that you have. And she does it in such a way that like she basically pulled the words right out of my mouth that I couldn't really find how to frame them myself, which is really incredible. Because I feel like oftentimes when you're young, especially around like the age of 18, you feel like, oh my goodness, I have my whole life ahead of me. I have all these things I want to accomplish. And then you get to like age 22 and you're like, holy crap, I'm an adult now. And like, how do I navigate this? And there's just so many lines in that song that I'm like, yup, preach. Like that's exactly, I remember feeling that exact emotion. And it also kind of more broadly defines or dives into how society kind of treats women and aging, especially in the music industry, which is Taylor's lived experience, and how she's really just candidly putting out there of like, oh my goodness, am I going to wake up one day and like be forgotten about? And like those really deep fears that some artists have, especially female artists have once they've kind of aged out of their era of novelty, I guess you can say.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like this song, and it just gives it a whole new light that she wrote this when she was 22, and like it feels so personal. Like I feel like I just read a chapter of a diary that she wrote, and it's just the lyrics are beautiful, and just like the melody is really beautiful as well. So I think it's honestly one of my all-time favorites, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also did not know who Phoebe Bridgers was before I heard this album. So yeah, it's cool to hear like more about or learn more about her music, but also like when I first listened to the Vault songs, it definitely wasn't one of the songs that like stuck out to me at first because it's kind of like a slower song and like I don't know, just you kind of can get a bunch of different perspectives about like what she is talking about in it. But yeah, I think she did mention, I don't remember what interview it was, but that like Jacqueline said, like the song is basically about her realizing that like she says like, oh, how did I know everything at 18 but nothing at 22? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like you when you're younger, you feel like you know everything, and then you get to a certain point where you're like, wait, I actually didn't know anything, and I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And um I saw like a clip somewhere of like an interview she did when she was like first becoming very popular, and something she said was like she doesn't want to be putting out music if people aren't going to listen to it. So I think the question was like, where do you see yourself in like 10 or 15 years, which is crazy because it's been 10 years. And she was like, well, hopefully making music, but like we'll see, because basically what Jahan said, like a lot of times that kind of fame dies down and like you don't hit those numbers that you used to hit anymore. And she's like, I don't want to be that like artist that continues to put out music if people aren't a fan of me, or like no one wants to hear it. And I feel like it's kind of it's kind of like funny that she said that in an
Yeah.
interview, because she's like doing the complete opposite. Like people just want to keep hearing more and more from her. So
Yeah.
it's just like
And I feel like she kind of addressed this a bit in the Miss Americana documentary, where she was like, especially for a woman, you have to constantly be reinventing yourself,
Mm,
and keeping yourself shiny and new enough, but not too new that people aren't still a fan of you, and how it's just so intricate and complicated for a lot of women in the music industry.
mm-hmm,
And so I don't know. I think this song just really like situates itself well for so many young females. And I don't know, I think we can all, I think everyone can relate to it in some way. Like losing
mm-hmm.
your youth is a very scary thing. And it's something that everyone, it's a universal kind of experience as well. And it's interesting because like Elena was saying a little bit earlier on, is so many people who criticize Taylor are always like, you only write about love songs. Like, no, here's an example. Like, this is a really deep
Yeah.
human experience and emotion that people have. And like, maybe you won't be a huge fan of the song, but like, I'm sure you can relate to what she's talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, you guys kind of hit the nail on the head where we're talking about the significance of nothing new. Taylor had said in the interview that I watched that when she wrote the song originally, it was kind of like describing that point of her being past her breakthrough moment as an artist, where it's like, you walk in the room and everyone's like, oh, hey, like, you've done this before, you're big, we get it, like, you are who you are, like, you're Taylor Swift. It's not like the big reaction that she would have gotten from like earlier releases when she was like really up and coming, like Fearless or Speak Now. Like, Red was a huge defining album for her and a very like coming of age album, you could say. So it's interesting like hearing her still talk about these concepts like you both mentioned, of like womanhood and being comfortable in your own skin and growing up and being comfortable like with aging and things of that sort. So yeah, like I really really liked that track for that reason. Something I wanted to bring up too and ask you guys, how do you think like these new songs fit into the whole aesthetic of Red? Because this was an album where like she really experimented, and she's even said herself like there's so many different genres on this original album and the new one as well. So how do you think like these new songs really fit into the rest of them? Because even these ones kind of take on all different forms.
Yeah, I feel like it's very Red like just because you can't really define it in one way. Like you can't be like, oh, that's Taylor doing country again. This is her doing a pop song. Like it's just so varied, I guess. I love the song. I think it's called The Very First Night. That's one of my new favorite songs off of the Vault tracks, and it has very like an upbeat kind of almost like 1989 feel to it. It like feels like this was her leading into that transition.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. I think it's cool that she had. I feel like to me it feels still cohesive even though there is so many different like types of genre, I guess you can say, on the album. Just because Red is kind of an album where like it's not defined. It's anything you want it to be, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like Red is kind of like a transitional album in a way because her previous albums before, like Fearless, her original TS album, and like Speak Now, were more kind of like country, like leading into pop. And then on Red, like she does have like a little bit of country. Like a lot of them might be like more poppy songs. They all have, like we said, like some are like more upbeat, some are slow songs, some are happy, some are sad. So it's just like I feel like your emotions go all over the place when you're listening to the album. Whereas like I feel like albums I listen to from other artists today, it's like either all a breakup sad album or it's all like a pump up fun album, or like an album you listen to when you go out with your friends. So I feel like giving her fans like that variety, like I personally like that because it's like you kind of get a little bit of everything. And I yeah, so I feel like it helped her kind of evolved and then figure out what she wants to do for like future albums.
Oh yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. Like, what's she gonna do when she goes back to creating new albums? Because she's gonna be re-recording like older versions for a while. I wonder how this whole process of like revisiting her past work is gonna impact her future work. Like, that's a really cool concept to think about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of speculation that on December 26th, either December 13th or December 26th, she's going to announce something, and a lot of people think it's going to be the re-release of Speak Now because there's
Mhm.
been a lot of Easter eggs, but a lot of people also have found Easter eggs that it could be like her third album in the trilogy because like
Mm.
she has Folklore, Evermore, and it seems like there would be a third one because like she's kind of hinted at like a trilogy type of thing,
Mhm.
because those albums are like very similar, and she calls them like sister albums or something. um so it could be either or. I'd be happy with either, but yeah, like you
Right.
said, it would be interesting to see if that's even something she's gonna do or if she's gonna move on to like a different album after that.
Yeah. So many possibilities.
There are.
We'll see what happens. Well, thank you guys, Jacqueline and Elena, again for coming on and doing this. I love having you guys on the podcast. We might have to take a veer from Taylor Swift at some point, but obviously anytime Taylor Swift is in the news, you guys are one of the first people that offer. So I appreciate you guys coming on.
Of course. This is so much fun. Could talk about Taylor for hours.
Maybe Taylor will see this one day and join us. You know what? You should
Oh my
post a clip
God.
of it. You should post a clip of it on TikTok because she creeps on TikTok and she comments on people's stuff.
That's
So
Yeah.
fair.
that's a good
Gotta
idea.
get on rotation on TikTok.
Oh yeah, we'll try to make it happen for sure. Thank you guys
Of
again. I appreciate it.
You're
course. Always
welcome.
happy to be here.